All right. Welcome to the Boom Learning Back to School 2023 Symposium Demo Lessons Boom for Elementary School. Today I have with me Janice Johnson and Katie Phelan.
Phelan, yeah.
Phelan. Everyone. Janice Johnson and Katie Phelan are going to talk about their stores a bit and about how to use boom cards in elementary school practice. Um, there is some Zoom chats for you. Please let us know where you're from and if you've been using boom cards already in the past. And also, if you look at the Zoom Q&A bubble, it's somewhere down there where I'm pointing. That's a good way to leave questions for Janice and Katie if you'd like them to elaborate on some of the topics they cover, or maybe talk about their work a little more, what's really good for what their students love. This is a great place to talk with them for the Q&A at the end. The webinar is being recorded, so if you've registered, the webinar will be sent to your email address, but it's also going to be placed in our YouTube page. So if you missed the registration or aren't emailed by Zoom, you can still get a link from us. Please email help@boomlearning.com and ask us, and we can get you stuff. The recordings will probably be ready by Friday on YouTube. Well, that's about it for my housekeeping. I'd love to introduce you to Janice Johnson, who will be talking about her store, Speak Up Language Learners.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share a sample deck that I use with my students. I use boom cards with my elementary Spanish students. I have students in grades K through 5. My students have had limited exposure to the language. They don't know a lot of Spanish. So I like to create boom decks to give students a mini immersion experience with a lot of input. I often use storytelling, and that's a sample, example lesson I have up here right now. I like to use storytelling because it gives a context for the language, and I can use a lot of images to illustrate the story, and that helps to make the language comprehensible. So the boom deck I'm going to show you today is an interactive story. It focuses on beach vocabulary. That's the new vocabulary that the students are working with. I've also brought in other vocabulary my students already know, like colors, weather, numbers, and animals, so they can interact with the story. So they're not just listening to a story. Instead, they have questions to answer and things that they can click on and participate in the story. I've also used that vocabulary that they already know as a way to repeat the newer vocabulary so that they keep hearing the new words over and over again, and it just gives them a lot of input and helps them acquire their new vocabulary. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the story. It's a story about a pig at the beach. A good part of the deck is just the story with audio for them to listen. So I'm just gonna move forward through a few pages. So they're just listening, looking at the pictures, working with the language, and then here's the first interactive page where they have to click on the correct color of the shell. So that's one of the new words that they're learning, the word for seashell. And they're going to hear it over and over again while they're using the vocabulary that they've already learned about the colors. They'll know which one is the green one. And then it just repeats with some more colors. So they just keep hearing that word several times. So you'll see I use that strategy in other pages of the story, just repeating that new vocabulary and connecting it to vocabulary they already know so that they can interact with something on the page. So here they're counting, and it's an either or question, so they would have to click on the correct answer. If they get it wrong, they're able to try again. There's audio for both the question, and I also have audio for the two options for anyone who's might be younger and maybe not as good at reading. And this one is with a color. Here they have an either or question. Again, they already know the animals, so this is just reinforcing vocabulary they've learned previously. It asks if it's a cow or if it's a chick. And then finally, they are going to choose the correct word. And again, this one has the audio with the two animal choices. Some more colors. And then new vocabulary for sunglasses, the ball. And now again, repeating one of the newer vocabulary words for ball and bringing in older vocabulary. They already know how to count. So they're just going to count the number while they're just hearing that new word repeated several times. And back to some more animal names. I'm getting close to the end of the story where I can show you how we work a little bit more with the new vocabulary once the story has ended. Just a few more pages here. This is a question about likes or dislikes, if they like swimming. So there's not a wrong or a right answer to this one. So instead of having two places to click, they can still click on the one that they like, but they both would be marked correct. And this is the same thing if they like to go scuba diving. Okay, so that is the end of the story. And I always end a storytelling lesson with some type of an activity where they would really focus in spend more time working on that newer vocabulary that I wanted them to acquire. So for this particular deck, the students are going to be listening to an audio clip.
La pelota.
And then they'll choose the matching image. So just like with all of the activities, the other pages, if they get it wrong, they can try again until they get it right, which just helps to reinforce that new vocabulary word. So that this actual deck, the Pig at the Beach one, has 10 pages like the one that I just showed you. But rather than show you all 10 of them just repeating the same type of interactive activity, I thought I would show you a few other types of comprehension activities, so other examples that I use in other stories so that you could get different kind of ideas of how you might like to create activities for your students. So this page here is from a story about sports. And the students will click. They have two places to click on the audio and then drag up the correct matching image. You could make it harder by, I have the word there spelled out also. You can make it harder by not having the text on the page and they just have to listen to the word and then drag up the image. This one is from a story about clothing. So at the end of the story, students have several pages like this one where they would listen to the audio clip and then put the sentence that they hear in order by dragging the words down to the rectangles on the bottom of the page. This one is from a story about insects, and the students can listen to the 2 audio clips on the bottom of the page, and then they actually have to drag the audio clip into the circle, the one that matches the image. This example is from a story about a pumpkin patch. Students would listen to the audio clip on the top of the page and then click the matching sentence. And again, you could modify something like this by either having only the text, no image, and kind of having them make sure that they can read it, or removing the text and just having them choose the correct image, just depending on what your goals are for your activity. This one is from a St. Patrick's Day story, and it has to do with body parts. So a lot of the vocabulary on the blackboard there, or the whiteboard on the screen, are body parts. There's a few other words from the story up there, like some clothing. So students would listen to the audio clip and then type in the missing word. This one is a sequencing activity. There's both text and audio, and it's about fruits and vegetables, this deck. And they just need to, whatever is mentioned first, they would drag the fruit into the box 1, and same thing for the rest of them. And again, you could modify it and make it a little more challenging by having only the audio or having only the text. This one is reading comprehension, but I've added some vocabulary support in there by including the images next to the vocabulary words. And same thing, on the bottom, they have a sentence to listen to, and they type in the missing word. And again, you can make this harder by taking away the images, either on the bottom, that would make it harder, or entirely removing all images would make it even harder. And this is my last example comprehension check. This one is about a story about Guatemala. They just learned a lot of different facts about Guatemala. And this is just one comprehension check. What's the capital of Guatemala? And they would need to choose it. All right, that is my last example. So I am going to stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Janice. That's beautiful. I like the St. Patrick's Day one. It's so green. It's like wonderfully, yeah, all these greens. Yeah, very nice. I like the colors and the pop of each, and how the deck has a story, but also some challenges. It needs a little interaction. Yeah, that's all very, very awesome and inspiring to me. I don't have any spur of the moment questions yet, and we have some extra time, so I'd like to just allow the audience a moment to ask any questions they may have for you. But if not, for now, we can allow Katie to speak about Kindershark, and we'll wait till the end for the Q&A, and then we can do some demo lessons as well. But go ahead, Katie. Thank you for being here again, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me get my presentation up here. All right. My name is Katie Phelan. My boom store is Kindershark. So just talking about boom carts in the elementary classroom, just a little bit about me. I am actually an elementary teacher. So I've been teaching for 18 years. I'm in Ohio. I'm currently teaching in first grade, but I do have experience in special education, preschool, and then I taught kindergarten for 12 years. But out of all those 12 years, I have been actually using boom cards in my classroom for 7 years. And I could tell you, I honestly use it every single day with my students. It is definitely something that I have found as a game changer in my classroom, to help individualize and for students to be working. I've been a publisher in the Boom Store for 5 years. So I have quite a few activities just from what I've built up, I've been using in my classroom. So I can assure you that anything that I do have in the store does get used by students on a daily basis. So a little bit about what I'm going to go over with you. I'm going to talk to you about some tips and ideas on how to use boom cards in your classroom, and some things that you could do to make it successful and the different ways that you can use it. And then I'm going to be going through some lessons on using some boom cards for reading and phonics, ELA. We're going to go into a little bit of math, and then science and social studies. So looking into ways to incorporate boom cards into your classroom. So like I said, I've used them every day. So these are just some of the tips that I found. The biggest game changer to me is this is such an easy way to differentiate for your enrichment and your interventions for specific students. We all know that you get those students in your classroom that are coming to you and they're above grade level or even 2, 3 grade levels above. And you're like, oh my goodness, how am I going to reach this student? This is such an easy way to differentiate for them, because you can find them specific activities or create them on your own of what you want them to be working on. So yes, you might be working with them in a small group, but then when they're not in a small group with you, you can make them individual activities so that they are working on exactly what they need to be working on. And then the same thing for intervention. You have students on IEPs that need goal work, or they need to just be doing some extra interventions. You can send them their activities, and it's a really easy way to differentiate that way. Another way that you can be using it is you can still do it whole group. I know that's a question that I've gotten a lot is, I have kindergartners, they don't know how to do this one independently. Well, you could still put it up on your projector, whether you have a smart board or, whatever device you have in your classroom. You can put some of these activities up on your smart board and do them whole group with your class, and you're directing them through that way. You can also do them with small group in stations, whether you're sending them the activities through Google Classroom, or you just are using when you create your class in boom cards, and then you have a little URL link. You can have students bookmark that on their class, on their Chromebook or whatever device that they may be using, iPad, anything they may be, can bookmark that, and then they can go on and sign on through that way. In my classroom, I have a class website, so I just link it on there, and then my students just know how to go in and click on that link and get right on it. And then also for small group, when you are doing small groups, to me, it's the most important. I want to make sure that I'm giving my students the most bang for their buck. So if they're not with me in a small group and I'm working with another group, how do I know that they're over there at a station or working independently, and that they're not reinforcing incorrect things? So one of the biggest things for boom cards is that they are self-correcting. So you know that those students that are working over there are working on skills that are going to be correcting. Whether they're building words, that they're not going to be building the word said incorrectly, because it self-corrects them. So that has always been a major game changer for me, is making sure that I know my students are reinforcing correct skills. Another way that you can use it is by homework, or at least home communication. I give my parents the link, the sign-on link, and I let them practice. I say, any of the games that are up there, are they a free game, to do at home? And my parents, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback from parents that they really like that. They understand that, the phonics skill this week is soft C and G, but they don't know what that means. So it's a really awesome thing for them that if by having these activities, they could see 40 different words that have that soft C and G, so that they can understand it, reinforce it as well. I've had one parent that has told me that because they can get it on their phone, that they're at a sibling soccer practice and they're sitting there and they give it to their kid and let them practice their spelling words for the week. So that's a really awesome way that parents really do enjoy it as well. Another way you can use it is by giving students exit tickets. By using the data feature of it, you get automatically that feedback. So you do your little mini lesson, and then you give a students an exit ticket to see how they've done on it. So now you can go back to your data, and now you can see, okay, hey, which students do I need to intervene with, and which students, understand it. And also, if you have the live feature on there, you can go on and live and immediately get that feedback. Whether, let's say that we're doing a chapter review and preparing for a test, and I want to see how my students are doing, I can be on that live feature and go on there and say, oh, hey, this kid's like really struggling with understanding the part whole of adding. So I'm going to pull them up. So while the other students are working on their review game, I'm going to pull that kid up, and I'm going to get out manipulatives and help them right then and there. And like I said before, goal work for individual students. You can assign it to a group of students. You can do it to individual, or you can even assign it to the whole class. And another way that I found in my classroom, my students really enjoy when I have thematic or holiday decks. They're always like, hey, Thanksgiving's coming up. Are you going to make us a turkey game? Or, they're always wondering, what's the boom cards game that we're doing today? So having that student interest and having them have games that they really enjoy, they don't realize that they're learning. They're thinking this is a really fun game. So that's just one of the ways that they really like it. So looking into some phonics and reading, we know with the science of reading, there is a huge push into phonics and phonemic awareness. So I've been working on using boom cards as a way to push that. For phonemic awareness, one of the things that I struggle with is that because phonemic awareness is taking the print away and actually hearing and manipulating the sounds, it's really hard to do when you're not right there with the students. So boom cards is one way that I found that the students don't have to directly be with me to be working on phonemic awareness. So I'm going to show you some of the activities that I have for phonemic awareness where they're working on here. This is a bundle that I have that is 4 of them together. And a lot of this is based on the, if anybody does the PASS assessment or the PAST, these are some of the skills where if a student, you give the assessment and, hey, my students are struggling with this, these are some of the decks that you can provide for them. One is working on rhyming. Another one I'm going to show you here is phoneme segmentation. So let me show you a little preview of this.
Phoneme segmentation.
You will see on all the decks that I create, on the first page, it's always a direction page, and the directions are always given in audio. For our young students, our preschool first to second, they may not be able to read the directions. So I always include those in audio to make sure that they understand what is expected. So looking
G.
So this is taking that print away, and they're having to listen to a word that is segmented, g, and then they will select the picture that goes with it. So that is an example of that, this phoneme segmentation. Going back then to, here's another one, phoneme substitution. Once again, directions are on that first page.
Rot. Take off the t and add a k. What word did you make?
So then they would have to select rock. And obviously you can see if they selected clock, whoops, that one is going to be incorrect. So that's how it is self-correcting, that they can click all the wrong ones until they finally get to that correct one. So that is
spin.
That is self-correcting. Going back then, so those are some phonemic awareness, and I have lots of additional ones. Another ones that I have are switch it, where it's kind of incorporating that print now. So they see the word bed, and then they have to take off the and add an a and making additional words. So that's another switch it. Some other phonics in the classroom, here's encoding. The district that I work for, we use Orton Gillingham. So a lot of these are very much related to Orton Gillingham, and building and encoding is such a big push. So like here is one for vowel tame EA. Once again, directions on the first page. They will listen to the audio.
Seat. My seat is over here.
So then they have to take the words and push them up. This is very similar to the orthographic mapping that's big on science of reading. that they will have to do that. You will see that in most decks too, I do at least 25 words, just so that students aren't memorizing the first 10 words. Like only, we want them to be to more than 10 words. So a lot of them will be at least 25 so that you can be sure that they're really practicing the skill versus memorizing certain words. So going back then, so that would be word building. I also have word sorts. And looking at this one, this is where instead of the encoding, now we're just having them
Tray.
identify it.
Please put the cookies on the tray.
So that we have been learning that, hey, our long A, we can have AI or we can have AY. And so they just have to take it up, drag it up to finish the word. So like this one again has 33 cards on it for 33 different words that they're really practicing that skill. Some other things for kindergarten and preschool, lots of for identifying letters and sounds, a great way to be doing that. I have one of a bundle that has a whole bunch of different, does it start with B?
Bear.
So does bear start with B? They would either click yes or no. So there's a bundle there with a whole bunch. I believe that bundle has, I believe that there are 20. There's several, obviously, sounds that would not be have enough to do in an entire deck. All right, going back then. And then, like I said, there's additional feeding the shark at beginning sounds. There's lots of different ones. I try to do holiday ones too, where they're feeding like the reindeer or feeding the snowman. Find something that starts with the ah sound to feed it to them. So those are some phonics and reading activities. One of the biggest ones I wanted to show you though is with ELA, are the book companions. I know as a teacher, I really focus on using a mentor text of the week to teach my ELA skills. So whether we're working on parts of speech or we're working on character, setting, story elements, answering WH questions, what we do a lot is using that mentor text as with rich literature. So I've created a lot of book companions that are working on questions from stories and sequencing and recall. So looking at one awesome story, the cool bean. But what I have been doing with these is I make 2 for each story. They have the exact same questions, but what I have found is that in first grade, especially too, I have some students that are reading and I have some students that are not reading yet. So I have created 2 that can be bundled together. One has audio where it has the option to have all text read to them. And then there's one that's available without. That way you can differentiate for your students that are reading and not reading. So like obviously by like 3rd, 4th grade, these would still be great decks to be using. However, you would want them to be reading them independently. So looking at this one about the cool bean,
On each card,
obviously directions again. But like this one is the one that does have the audio. So if they are looking at this and they go, I don't know, we want to be able to assess and see, do they understand the concept, the ELA, the comprehension versus are there decoding skills?
who were friends in the olden days? The seven dwarfs, all the cool beans, the good egg and the bad seed, or the golden girls?
And I always like to throw in some fun ones for my students, like adding in the Golden Girls, or like some of the options might be, oh, they went to McDonald's. It just helps with that student interest that they're like, oh my goodness, they get to do this. So adding some funny responses in there too would be just a way to keep your students interested and keeping them motivated. So I have several of these book companions. Like I said, each one I will bundle together and have so that way you can differentiate for readers and non-readers. And I will have several of these coming in the near future. My district has a new ELA curriculum this year, so I will be working on making some more decks for additional book companions. But I do have quite a few out there, and a lot of them do align with science and social studies as well. That's one of the big things that I like to do with my mentor text is align with my science and social studies, because we know that we don't always get a lot of time for that. So incorporating that and aligning those does help. Before I go to math. So more in ELA, like working on punctuation, some sentences, sorting realism and fantasy, nouns and verbs, just some great activities for them to be working on those skills independently. Looking at math, I have started making some review games for test prep. My district uses the Envision map. So for each of the different chapters or topics, at the end of it, I've created a review game for them to do where they could be practicing it. And that is where I can go on that live feature. And as my students are working on it in the classroom, I'd be like, oh, I see that this student is really struggling with the concept of using the number line. I could pull them up, get out more manipulatives, and work with them one-on-one on it. Also, this is another one that parents really, really like for the test prep, is that they can be on it at home. And I do a thing like where like I can go on there and see when my students have been on it. So anybody who does it at home gets an extra raffle ticket. And but parents really like this because it's related to directly what you're doing in the classroom. So there is, I do have a lot of stuff that is aligned for math with that curriculum. But there are also from there lots of other activities, whether no matter what curriculum you're using, that there are different activities that can reinforce the skills and the strategies that you're using in the classroom. One of my student favorites is always this, I have this one in double add-ins and triple add-ins, where they have like this
Double add-ins menu.
and they have the menu up at the top. So then they need to figure out how much is a pizza plus a sub sandwich. So then they would have to look up and 4 plus 5 equals, and then they have to type in on their keyboard number 9. That's a big one. My students really, really love that one. So that one is available and it has double add-ins, and I also have that one also in triple add-ins. And then just some other strategies using a number line, using the place value cubes, and story problems. And then just looking into science and social studies, we know that as a teacher, science and social studies is just something we always, try to get to, but it always takes the back burner from reading and math. So sometimes it's really hard to find activities for students and ways to assess them on their understanding of their skills. So I have several science and social studies decks that are available. These are great to be using as exit tickets, a very quick assessment as to do they understand it. Like one of the standards, goods and services, looking at this one. It's a very, very quick, most of these my students could get done in like less than 5 minutes. But like looking at this one with goods and services, they look at the picture. Is this a good or is it a service? It is a teacher. She is doing a service. Very quick, where they get these done super quick, and it's an awesome feedback for you to see how are they doing. You can use this and input it as a grade, or just as your informal assessment to see how are they working. Also, another great thing for independent work, something that they can do quickly on their own. So that is, like I said, there's additional ones that I have been working on over the summer. I'm working on additional book companions. I'm also trying to take those phonics skills and work on, we know that, with science of reading, working on decodable sentences with comprehension check, working on additional math strategies and some sight word hunts. So those are just some of the activities that I have available that I have found have been working really awesome in my classroom.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. I love the menu and adding up
Yes,
that's brilliant. Oh, it's so
they love
smart.
it.
Yeah, I bet it's practical. I also like your cute robot
Thanks.
artwork. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Katie. That's awesome. I like how diverse you are made a lot of stuff. We have some time for some questions. I have a few questions here. I suppose I could just pose them to both of you. One of them is, how do you manage screen time and ensure a balanced approach between the digital and traditional learning methods if you have students of your own in the classroom?
One way that I have found to do it is I just put like a time limit on it. So if I'm having students do it as a station, I do have time stations. So that way, if they're at a station for 10, 15 minutes, I only have one of my stations as a technology station. And it's always more than likely always boom cards that they're on there, because I could differentiate and then they're working on that goal work. But just kind of by having that routine set up, it kind of does help to manage some of that time so that you know that you're having a good balance in the classroom.
Sure. Janice, do you have students in the classroom?
I do, but I teach online, so everything is digital.
Oh, it's all digital. Okay. And you probably don't tell them you have to go print some stuff out and then,
No,
yeah, that would, yes, I
they don't
understand.
always have printers.
Sure, sure. Okay, well, that's interesting. Having a station, like a tech station, is a way to sort of control the time there. Yeah, interesting. Let's see, another question. A question from Jeff. I'm a beginner in regards to boom cards. Curious, how long did it take each of you to get up to speed on creating all of these decks? Janice, do you want to start this time?
I'm not really sure how long. I know it was maybe 2018 when I started, and so it's been some time, and I definitely think I just started slow and maybe just learn how to do one thing at a time. That's really what I would recommend, because it can be overwhelming. You see, when you see so many different types of activities and all that you can do. So I think that's what I did. Just start with something simple that I could figure out, and then go from there, add on things. I'm
Yeah, I
still
would
learning,
say,
and I'm still learning.
Less is more. I've
Yes.
heard that
Yeah.
less is more. What about
yeah,
you, Katie?
if you look at like even in the boom store, if you look at the different stores that are on there, you're probably going to see a big difference from, all these publishers, from what we did early on to some of the things that we are doing now that, we are also like learning. And there's Boom has new features always coming out. With different things that like, ooh, hey, I could do this. I can make a hide and seek thing with, things. So I definitely think start small. Think about what is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck for your students. And even maybe at first you want to like look in the boom store and think, oh, hey, maybe picking select things, and then kind of going from there and getting your feet wet. But just definitely, I would start with what is going to give your students the most for their time.
Gotcha. Yep, I agree with that. And always leave feedback if you're buying boom cards. You can tell the publisher about what they have done well, or if there's a typo, obviously. um, what are some of your favorite topics of what you teach, or languages? I suppose I could ask too.
I do have Boom. I have all of my decks have an English version, a Spanish version, and a French version, but I just teach Spanish right now. That's what I'm teaching. So those are the ones that I use with my students. And probably the ones I like most are the like the examples I showed with the reading comprehension, where they are actually having to interact. It's with the text and read and typing out the words. Those are the ones that I feel like they're a good challenge for my students, and they're things they enjoyed also.
And they respond to the story pretty well too, I would imagine. That
Yeah,
the brain break kind of intermittently. Yeah.
right. Yeah, they
Mhm.
like being able to be involved in it and have something to do, not just sitting and taking it all in.
All right. All right. They feel like they're there. Yeah. What about you, Katie? What is your favorite topic?
I actually, so too, the phonics to me, I'm like a big teacher of like phonics is my jam. Like I love it. So a lot of those ones that I've been working on of the phonics, incorporating that, just ways for students to be working on those independently without me having to directly be there. Other thing I would love are the book companions. Definitely a big person with using a mentor text of the week. So getting to do that. My students actually come in on Fridays and they're like, yes, we get our book companion this week, because they know that it's always like the summary of the week of doing that. So they always love it. And then they're like, oh, what's going to be our next book of the week? And so I think I would definitely say book companions as well.
Nice. So actually, like the text station digital, but then also coupling what you make with what you know is printed. Is there any crossover where, you know, the boom cards tell them to go back to like the clipboard or the wall or anything like that you've ever created?
Oh yes. I mean, so like a lot of times, like things like if they're working on like a phonics one, even like sight words, they'll like they'll look at, you know, our word wall or our sound wall, and they're using all those other tools. They're looking at writing. Some of the ones that I have for sight words too, I might have like a paper too that they're gonna have to, if it's a sight word hunt, they're going on a hunt and then they're writing down the word that they found on it too. So not just always relying on the technology, but also incorporating that writing into it as well.
Gotcha. Let's see. I have a few other questions here. What have been some of your students' reactions to what you've made that really made you go, "Oh, wow, there's opportunity in this deck that I've made. I can change it." Do you have any memories like this of students giving you feedback where you realize that this is the deck?
Yes, several of them. I mean, like I've had like kids like where they're working on an independent station and they're like yelling across the room, "This one's awesome!" Or, but one of my actually favorite stories is I had a student several years ago that he had, you know, behavior issues and that we were working on. One of his rewards that he wanted to do, he was very much into Mario. So his reward at the end of the day is he would come over to with me, and for 10 minutes, he was making his own Mario game on boom cards and we would work on it together. And it took him a month to earn it and to be like for that 10 minutes every little day. But then when the other students got to play his game that he made, it was like a game changer for him. And it was a really great, awesome reward. And he was also reinforcing his academic concepts as well as reinforcing positive behavior. So that's always one of my favorite stories of, you know, I'll bring up like, hey, I have this deck that's, you know, on Mario. Obviously, I don't have it for sale because of copyright issues. It was just something we did privately, but it was just really funny that that's what motivated him was to be making a boom cards game.
I
Interesting.
love, can I just add real quick? I love that you mentioned that Mario deck, like theme deck, because and that you don't post it to sell it in the store, but that you actually create it and you also created it in like with your student, because teachers can also do this. So you can personalize your deck based on your student interest. And just like, for example, now this student with this Mario interest, you can just create a deck for him, and you don't have to put it in the store. Just like privately create that and use them privately with your students. So you can create any type of decks that you want. So thank you, Katie, for sharing that.
Yeah, I like that. Janice, can you think of a student who
Can't beat that story, the Mario story.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just would say that the boom decks feel like you're playing a game, and you know all the kids love playing games, and so they just beg for them. They love them all.
That's really good news for us, I suppose, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I have a couple other questions. This one may have been covered a little already, but for teachers that are new to boom cards, do you have any recommendations for them getting started? I know you said to start slow. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew, so to speak. But are there other little things like that maybe they're not even creating yet, but would still be useful for them that you think they could
Yeah,
get?
starting with a deck that they purchased takes away all that creating anxiety. And also, when you do that, it kind of gives you more experience with what you can do with a boom deck, and then you can kind of figure out what was in that deck that worked well with your students that you liked, and then go from there, move to making your own, using kind of pulling the features that you like out of the decks that you have and modifying them for your needs.
And with that too, I find that when you find what works in your classroom and managing how you want to use it, whether you're using it for stations or you're using it for whole group, kind of by maybe using one that you've bought first, if you know, as just a way to kind of figure out what works for you. Because if you're going to be using them in small group versus whole group, then when you're creating them, you would maybe make them in a different way. So I think best would be to be just getting your feet wet and figuring out how to use it on in your classroom, so that way when you're creating your own things, you could tailor it to what works best for how you manage your classroom.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's interesting. We had a conversation in one of the other panels today about students making these games, and they can't actually use their student account to build in the studio right now. So they kind of just have to play what you find from the store. But hearing this story, and also just in general that students like them, it seems fair to think that maybe students imagine if they wanted to make things different, or maybe they see the artwork on the screen a little differently because they're imagining, and us providing a way to allow them to participate in the game making might, in my estimate, help with engagement and learning and reading. I remember myself, I played games to learn how to spell because I couldn't spell. But when I gamified it and gave myself a reward for spelling properly, then it became like, oh, I have to do it, not just because I have to do it, but because it's fun, because there's something more than just the task. Let's see. I think I have one more question, leading off of what I was just saying. How do you think that the boom cards in the future can enhance student engagement during lessons? I know it's sort of a boring question, but it's almost like I'm looking for something for me. What can we put in boom cards that you think is missing that might help your students, uh, grasp faster or become engaged sooner?
I mean, from what I see, they are very well engaged in it. Um, at least from, the lower elementary, preschool, kindergarten, first grade. I find it's very user friendly. My students know how to sign on very, very, very quickly. So I find that that's a really big thing too, is that they're not wasting all this time trying to get signed on, or they're at a 15-minute station and they spent 6 of the minutes trying to get on. They're usually on within 30 seconds of getting on. So that's one of the feature that I found really helps at this point too, is how user friendly it is for students and how that login process is pretty quick.
Okay, that's good.
I would agree. My students are always very engaged, and my favorite feature obviously is the audio. Just that is a game changer, being able to have the audio wherever you want it.
Okay, interesting. We added voice memos recently, but they don't save the audio for very long because of a privacy concern about the student's voice being out there, and we just delete it now. You can hear it if you're listening to the student over the shoulder with the iPad, but we want to improve that too. We want to make audio even better, especially for language learning and phonics in general, because that's to hear the student reply like, okay, how can I intervene? Very, very valuable. We're told about this all the time. But anyway, we're about at time. I want to thank you both for being here and for answering a bunch of questions I didn't rehearse with you about. The recording will be sent out to everyone who registered, and there is also a feedback survey for the webinar. It's just for you to tell us if we did well and help us to make it better next time. And also, the YouTube uploads for the symposium might not be available till Thursday or Friday, but we'll send them out to you. And if you can't find them, just email us at help@boomlearning.com, and we'll send you all the resources you need. Whatever you'd like us to send you, we can help you find it. But again, thank you, Katie Phelan, for being here, and Janice Johnson. You're wonderful, very inspiring and colorful, and we have sent links to your store page to the attendees and stuff so that they can find you. Anyway, I will let everyone go. Thank you very much again for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.
Thank you.